Hey, I just wanted to ask something about Christos Beast. Is it right? Am I right in saying, because I told a Facebook friend of mine in England, David Shaw, I told him that Christos Beast is now a Muslim. Is that right? Because I could have swore he was a Muslim.
No, that's a complicated subject. Just to say it in a nutshell, that's not Christos Beast. That's supposed to be Anton Long, the guy above the guy above him in the ONA. And the thing is that there is a bunch of evidence to indicate that Anton Long is actually David Myatt. I mean, there's kind of overwhelming evidence, but David Myatt himself has never fessed up to being Anton Long. So technically, for the record, it's not proven if Anton Long is David Myatt, but David Myatt is someone who is a Muslim and has been involved in radical right-wing things. And if it is true that David Myatt is Anton Long, then the founder of the ONA is a Muslim. But it's something you have to make up your mind for yourselves. I decline to say on this show my exact feeling towards it, but just go check it out for yourselves. If anybody's listening and finds what Nero just asked about curious, if you type in David Myatt, Anton Long, Myatt, M-Y-A-T, Anton, and then Long is spelled, I mean, you should be able to figure out how to spell that, and type in ONA, Order of Nine Angles, Satanism, something, you'll find the stuff that he mentioned that I'm talking about.
So I just want to say to David Shaw, if you're out there listening, I'm sorry about being mixed up on the person, but at least the fact we're sort of right. Anyway, but at least now you got the right information, and that's the point, right? So anyway, but yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because people ask about ONA all the time, and it's really hard to figure out what they're about, whether they're even a real organization, whether they're serious about what they do or whatever, and it's always a question that comes up,
Well, the thing I would say about the ONA, since it's so hard to tell what they are and what they aren't, is that it's whenever someone says, I know there are a lot of Satanists out there who have a lot of high respect for the ONA, even though they don't really know what's up with it. My thing about the ONA is since there's so much weird stuff, there's so much fishy stuff. It's just too. To me, it just the whole idea of it being really a real thing stands on too shaky grounds to really try to base any of your heavy religious beliefs on it. And just one other thing I want to add about the ONA is regardless or not if they're a real organization, if there's anyone out there listening who's been reading the ONA stuff for the first time and getting into it. One thing about the ONA that me and Nero can tell you with absolute certainty is that their history of how old they are and where they came from is completely made up and bullshit. There is no such thing as an ancient Albion sun cult that worshipped a goddess named Baphomet. I mean, if you don't believe us, you can waste the next 50 years reading archaeological records, and you'll never find anything of it. It just ain't there. It's just silly.
Yeah. Who was that on the phone, man? Anyway, no, I'm talking to our producers, and I shouldn't be. That's how bad of a host I am. Anyway, so, yeah, I guess we'll go on to my beginner's tip today for this month. And basically what I want to talk to you a little bit about is candle dressing, and I'm just going to give you a simple method. I know there's many methods, but here's a simple method for those of you who want to do candle dressing. When you want to drive something away from you, use the candle in an amulet sort of sense. You want to put your oil that corresponds to whatever your working is on from the base to the wick, starting from the base to the wick, and while you're putting the oil on and while you're massaging the oil in, you want to be thinking about what it is you want to get rid of, or what you want to keep away from you, or what you want to go away. And if you want to draw something towards you, you go from the wick to the base of the candle. And again, all this, you can use whatever oil is. You can use Saturn oil or all the different oils for all the planetary correspondence. There's a lot of information on what to use in 777. If you know how to use it, great. If you don't, well, maybe Obitus will explain that in a later episode. But there's all kinds of books you can use. For example, Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs is good, although he himself is a Wiccan or a witch of some tradition. I'm not sure if he's a Wiccan, but he's very white light. A lot of the stuff about the herbs is very useful, very helpful, but he doesn't tell you how to use it for black magic purposes. And I want to say something about that. Many people feel that just because something's a Wiccan book, that they can't use it. As long as you understand that they have a tendency to have a bias towards any use of herbs or oils in a black magic capacity, that doesn't mean their information is wrong. In fact, a lot of it is quite accurate, considering that they use herbal magic more than the average Satanist does. So if you want to get into that area, it's a good idea to pick up some of those books, like Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, and what's the other one? Incense, Oils, and Brews, the complete book of Incense, Oils, and Brews. And then if you want to look at the black magic applications, you can always pick up a book called Hoodoo, Herb, and Root Magic. I always forget the lady's name, but if you just look up Hoodoo, Herb, and Root Magic, she gives you all kinds of black magic applications for spells and root magic. So that's a good recommendation. And at the end of the show, we'll be putting up show notes, and I'll give you an actual list of the books and the authors' names, so you can look them up better. If you'll just go to Facebook.com/No Apologies, we'll have show notes up there after the show. Anyway, back to you, Obitus.
Well, yeah, that was good. Well, so the topic, so we're back to discussion time now, are we not?
Yes. And by the way, if anybody wants to call in and talk to us, they can at this time. And just let our producers know what you want to talk to us about, and they'll let you know. I mean, they will put you on the air. Okay.
Well,
yeah, we were going to talk about... Huh?
I was going to say, judging from the first show, I wouldn't keep our fingers crossed too much about the call-ins. But hopefully we'll get some. Come on, somebody. But yeah. Okay, but yeah, what were you saying, Nero?
We were going to talk about how Wicca presents itself in a way as if it's some kind of ancient pagan religion. And I think it would be a good thing to start with discussing this, because a lot of people that are not Satanists, especially those that aren't familiar with our religion, might be more familiar with Wicca. And Wicca tends to promote this idea that it's some traditional form of paganism, which is not. I think this would be a good thing to talk about. So the first thing we should say is that Wicca was founded by Gerald Gardner in the 1950s, and it is not an ancient pagan religion. In fact, there's some speculation that Crowley not only wrote his Charge of the Goddess, but also wrote the books, or had a big hand in writing the books that he used to found his religion. And this is not just something that Obitus and I believe, it's also what other witches believe as well. Go ahead, Obitus.
No, it actually is a fact. It's a fact that I want to say Doreen Valiente was the big Wiccan woman in the 50s, right, Nero? Doreen Valiente?
Mm-hmm. That's
not Mather's wife. No, that was Moina Mathers. Okay, I'm right. Doreen Valiente, who helped Gardner start his thing, she herself has admitted in interviews that the original Book of Shadows was mostly written by Gerald Gardner and Aleister Crowley. After Gardner had Crowley help her write it, he brought it to Doreen, and Doreen felt that the original version by Crowley had too much Thelema impact, which basically probably means that it had too much emphasis on the manly side. And so she did her job of finally touching it up. So the original Gardnerian Book of Shadows is a work between Gardner, Aleister Crowley, and Doreen Valiente. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Sorry, y'all, if I'm bad with saying certain names right. I've only read before. But the interest, and as far as the Charge of the Goddess goes, It's not that Crowley wrote the Charge of the Goddess, but the Charge of the Goddess, if you take up a copy of the Charge of the Goddess, and then you get a copy of Crowley's Liber Al, or the Book of the Law, and you compare it to the Chapter 1, the Charge of the Goddess is made entirely of quotes from Chapter 1 of Crowley's Book of the Law, cut up and rearranged with a few new sentences put in. And the same thing goes for the Wiccan's Charge of the Horned God. If you take the Charge of the Horned God and compare it to the second chapter in Crowley's Book of the Law, it is just a bunch of lines from Crowley's second chapter of the Book of the Law, cut up and rearranged and new sentences put in. Now, some Wiccans are honest about that, but the problem is that the vast majority of Wiccans do not even know that, and much less are honest about it.
Yeah, not only are they not honest about it, but some of them know it, and they deliberately lie about it. And they try to, one of the things that's always bothered me about them in particular is that they have a Christian mentality about them. They have almost an air of superiority to them that rivals Christianity, and they almost have a Christian morality about them. And then they'll sit there and say, we're not influenced by Christianity. Our God is, beyond the Christian God it was before, and all that stuff. But yet their mentality about Satanists in particular, and their approach to morality is very much, kind of Christian in feel. And it's always bothered me a lot. For example, the whole thing about do what thou wilt but harm none, the way they use it, you don't even have to add the harm none if you know what do what thou wilt actually means. Do what thou wilt means to do your will, do your true destiny. And in so many words, Crowley said, if you're doing your true destiny, if you're doing what you were born to do, what you're here for, the universe will work in harmony with you and basically get out of the way. And if you know that and you truly understand what do what thou wilt means, there's no reason to put harm none, because you won't harm anybody by doing it.
Yeah, there is no reason to put that on there. And by putting it on there, reduces do what thou wilt, it reduces it to do what you like, because it's just saying do whatever you want but don't hurt nobody. And but the thing is, what they don't understand is that do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law implies that to an extent in and of itself, and doesn't need changing. It's just like, because usually when they say don't hurt anybody, of course, you're going to end up hurting somebody one way or the other, doing something in your life, even if it's just, you're going to hurt something sometime or another. It just happens. It's the way life goes. So of course, everyone knows what they mean in harm none, is they mean don't be a criminal and go out and doing criminal actions, which is a good thing. But if they really knew the meaning behind do what thou wilt, someone asked Crowley about that one time. They said, well, what if someone thinks it's their true will to go out and be a murderer? And Crowley said, well, a person like that is obviously at odds with their own true will and doesn't know their true will anyway, because even though everyone's true will is unique, everyone's true will is different, there are certain things, since we are all humans, there are certain things that all of us share as part of our true wills, and one of those is self-preservation. And if you go around hacking folks up, you put yourself, you are risking going around hacking folks up is against self-preservation just as much as going around and banging folks have AIDS. Because if you bang folks with AIDS, you're probably going to get AIDS. It's going to tear your system up. You go around hacking folks up, you're going to get, you're turning yourself.
More than likely, you're going to get put in jail. Yeah, you're going to get put in jail.
Well, depending on where you live at, you might have your damn head cut off. You can go to jail in some places. You might be put in an electric chair. But
that brings up an argument that I got to tell you, though. This brings up an argument that I got to bring up. Well, what if somebody's going to say, well, what if it's their true will to be caught and to be put in jail and to be restrained or put away from society so they can't hurt anybody? Maybe that's their true will. What about that argument?
If that really was their true will, then first of all, I personally wouldn't believe that a person would be born into this world with a true will of being a pariah. I couldn't believe someone was born into the world with a true will of being snuffed out. But even if, just for the sake of argument, if someone was born with the true will of being snuffed out, then the quickest and easiest and most effective way to achieve that will is to go ahead and off yourself.